That's flight checks complete. Chocks away.
Right.
You are cleared for takeoff.
Rory recording on the right mic.
Yes. Off Lewis.
How many times can we get that into the podcast?
Well, let's find out.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Polyhedron Cluttercast, episode 73. I'm Steve Tudor.
I'm John Cage.
I'm Andy Lewis.
And I'm Rory J. Summers.
And I'd like to start this by saying that Board and Dice, the Polish publishers of several games we mentioned on this podcast, including one we're going to be reviewing today, have seriously freaked me out.
Ooh, really?
Again.
Did they send you a dick pic?
Again.
So I received a mystery package from them a couple of weeks back.
Okay.
And this mystery package involved... I'm going to
What?
put the video on Skype so you guys can see.
Ah, yes.
A teddy bear.
I saw you put this up on YouTube, didn't you?
I've put this on YouTube, yeah. So it was a teddy bear, just randomly came in the post, a teddy bear. No explanation, nothing, just a bear. And I didn't think much of it. Apparently they've sent this to a couple of different media people around the world, and somebody mentioned there's something inside the bear. So actually sewn into the back of its head was a chip with a QR code on. And this QR code went to some promotional material for their new game, their Escape Tales Low Memory.
Mm.
And loads of weird stuff about, like, hackers and upload screens and things like that. So I put the video on. If you go to YouTube, I've actually done 2 videos on YouTube now. The first video is me taking the teddy apart and finding the QR code.
I've seen that one,
Yeah.
and it's terrifying.
It's-
Something
it's
scary
terrible.
about the way that you wield a knife, Steve.
I was scared for his thumbs.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, I don't know what you mean. I've only got 1, 2, 3 scars on my hands. You know, it's perfectly fine.
I thought you were going to say 3 thumbs left.
Well, he is from Wales. More than 2 is probably normal.
So this led to a little thing which said something about uploading. So I uploaded the video and then got sent a random email, which led to another Dropbox. And at first, I must admit, I thought this was spam because it looked really, really dodgy. Led to a Dropbox which included a video, which I put on the second YouTube video, of this like kind of V for Vendetta person giving all this spiel about how we're all being hacked and our memories aren't safe. And then another image. I remember I'm none the wiser now. I haven't got a clue what's going on because it's kind of this weird scrambled image. I have a funny feeling what I'm supposed to do is find the images off the other people and somehow do something with them.
I
Yeah.
combined them.
But
I watched that video, your second video, this morning, and it's really well put together, really creepy, with those like horizontal lines that go across the screen, so it's all slightly disjointed, and it's an automated voice. Very odd. They've really pulled the stops out.
Andy
do
keeps
that.
holding something up to the video, but Andy's got that stupid blur the background thing, and whenever he covers his face up, we can't see what it is.
Yeah.
So
sorry,
Andy,
hang on.
if you want to show it to us, just hold it next to your face.
Hang on.
I mean, we
hang
prefer it if you block your face out, but yes.
Yeah,
It's
that's
that,
the
isn't it?
ticket.
Okay.
Yeah.
on. That's that
Yes,
one.
that's the one, yeah.
Escape Tales Low Memory. There we go. In a box.
In a box. I haven't actually messed around with this too much. I opened it up and ooh, that's pretty cool.
Is that the one you picked up from the expo?
It is.
So that's just the tutorial mission, so it just gives you a taster of what the full game is going to be.
Okay.
I have the full game here,
Yes.
which we can play at some point. So I am very confused. I don't know where this is supposed to lead to. Now, this isn't the first time Board and Dice has done something creepy. Because a couple of years back, they sent us like a box full of magnetic tape with random audio recordings in. So it's they've got previous on this, should we say?
They are the masters of weird shit.
They did fantastic marketing. The little
Yes.
Yedo box we got as well. That was very cool.
It is very cool. I've actually repurposed my Yedo box into my sort of pipe box where I keep my pipes and my tobacco.
What's a Yedo box?
Yedo is a game from, is it the 80s or the 90s? I forget. Quite a while ago. And they're
It's a
remaking it.
reasonably old game.
Yeah, they're remaking it, and they gave us a promo of it at Expo. and there was a lovely little wooden box with some red mesh nesting type stuff in it. It looks like a nest. But it's a very lovely little box, and there's a little promo card in it saying greetings from Yedo.
Has it gone walkies, Rory?
I could find it, but I'm just going to be clattering drawers open and closed, which Steve's going to audio Nazi me for later.
Really? It's like you've got form for this or something, Rory.
Rory,
I don't know
audio
what you're
issues?
talking about.
No.
So every single member of the PHC podcast crew has at some point screwed up the audio, whether it's forgot to press record or recorded from the wrong microphone twice. These things happen. But Rory, you're definitely recording from the right microphone this week.
Let me just check. Hang on. I'm recording from my microphone open brackets, Yeti Nano close brackets.
Are you sure?
Good to hear. Good to hear. That's only about the 7th time we've made him check tonight.
Don't think it's going to be the last either.
Possibly not.
There was one episode a while back now where I had some change in my pocket or something, and I was dancing around, and Steve was not happy with me dancing around and having this change jingling. So what I didn't tell you was the next time we did an episode, I actually did it with no trousers on, just to make sure there was no...
That's the lengths that we go to, dear listener.
My drink almost ended up all over the keyboard then.
Awesome. Perfect timing.
I should point out that for our sanity, it's a good job that we film from the neck up.
Always the neck up.
We do now, yeah. Gone are the days
After last time.
of crotch cam in Malvern.
Oh no, I'd forgotten about that. It's all coming back.
Oh dear. Well,
Let's move on, shall we?
moving swiftly on, yes.
Oh dear.
I would say let's move on to some board games, but we've opened the show by talking about board games. This is quite unusual.
Well, let
Yeah.
me divert us for a moment then.
Oh, please
Has
do.
anyone seen the trailer for Diablo 4?
No.
I have indeed.
Oh, it looks very good. I must admit, I was a bit of a fan of Diablo 3. I know it's not the most complicated RPG compared to Baldur's Gate. It is, a kid's game, basically. But there are...
Click, 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 click,
It
click,
is,
click,
yeah.
click,
Honestly,
click, click,
it's
click, click.
designed to give you carpal tunnel syndrome in less than half an hour.
You can click and hold for the record. But anyway, the point is that it's a very...
It's like a bunch of dolphins operating Morse code office. There's that much click.
Oh, Steve's gone.
It wouldn't work underwater. The electricity wouldn't work. Anyway, while Steve regains his composure,
We've broken Steve.
We really have. That's brilliant.
I, for one, am really looking forward to this. The trailer looks amazing. The gameplay looks not as polished as I'm sure it will be, but it looks like fun.
When's it actually out? You mentioned Baldur's Gate, 'cause Baldur's Gate 3 is coming soon. I've got absolutely no
Soon.
idea when that game is coming out. Yeah, that's...
That'll be like Q3 2020 or something. It's probably
At
going to
the
be announced
earliest.
at next year's E3 or something, I would imagine.
I would have thought so, yeah.
Maybe. Oh well.
Possibly.
Because I'm really looking forward to that, because they've said it also links to the latest campaign they've done, Baldur's Gate Descent from Avernus.
Yes.
So apparently it links to it somehow. Now, I can't remember which one comes first, whether it's the D&D campaign comes first or Baldur's Gate 3. I think it's a D&D campaign is supposed to come first.
Well,
I bet
if it
would
helps, Baldur's Gate 3 is set 100 years after the events of Baldur's Gate 2.
But which is where all the current Sword Coast adventures are currently set. So Storm King's Thunder, Tyranny of Dragons,
Okay, that makes sense.
Descent into Avernus is all 100 years after Baldur's Gate 2.
Wow.
So that makes sense.
Okay.
Awesome. Well,
No time soon is the answer as to when Diablo 4 will be released.
That means I can save my pennies for both games and buy a new computer before then.
yes.
Yes. Yep, it will probably require some shinies.
John, you can't possibly require a new computer. Isn't your one like only a fortnight old?
Who said I needed a new
I
computer?
just thought you said you needed some new shinies.
No, I meant as in Steve would need some new
Ah,
shinies.
okay, right, okay.
No. The streaming beast that was unnecessarily purchased does not need upgrading.
Okay.
In all honesty, probably not for a decade or so.
Wow.
Yes, your card is a bit tasty. Oh, did you look into Moons of Madness?
I bought it. I didn't get a chance to play it yet.
Okay.
But the trailer looks good.
Yeah. It's quite atmospheric, is all I'm going to say. And obviously, its title is something of a giveaway as to the nature of its content. But it's because I played the Call of Cthulhu game with a detective chap in it, and that was okay, but it wasn't great. But it was very, very linear and quite straightforward. But this is still quite linear, but there's a lot more atmosphere in it. It's set on Mars.
Jumpy Cthulhu shit on Mars is what I took from the trailer.
Basically, yes. Yes, it is. It has also... It's very unnerving. Now, I don't scare easily. I really don't. There's only I can probably count on about 3 fingers how many games have actually truly scared me in the past. But
Andy Big Bollocks Lewis, they call him.
Well, yeah.
That's a separate thing, though.
I've got cream for that, don't worry.
John has the imaginary dance to the music that's not there.
John has got issues.
Oh, yes. Many.
Yeah, we know about that.
Also, I'm dancing when there's new music playing, so... Should we get on with the news?
Yes. So Essen was rife with tea leaves again this year.
Again?
Again, yeah. As I've been able to ascertain, I could be wrong here, but only one publisher has come forward with saying that they had stuff stolen. By the looks of your faces, I am wrong.
I thought it was 3, but only one had actually publicly announced it themselves.
That's what I mean, yeah. So I only know of Emperor S4 as the one they came forward publicly, and they had a kind of little Twitter thing of saying, please support our games because we've had €3,000 stolen. Who were the other 2?
I don't know, unfortunately, because none of them came out publicly, but I heard somebody else say that they knew of 2 other companies who had been robbed.
Was it your mate Dave down
cousin?
the pub?
Beat me to it. Someone's cousin's bloke who once walked a dog for a friend was married to this chap.
But this isn't the first time it's happened. There are lots of reasons why, suspected reasons why. Obviously, with over 200,000 people at Essen Spiel, it is very hard to physically police and eyeball. You've also got the issue that it's very difficult for non-German companies to be able to take card payments, even if the Wi-Fi was good enough for you to be able to connect. To be able to take card payments is one of the other reasons I've heard, which means everything or most everything has to be dealt with in cash, which means there's a cash box on each stand, which holds potentially lots of money. If you're thinking 50 odd euros per game and they are flying out, it becomes a very, very easy target. I'm not advertising. I'm not suggesting it as a plan, gents.
I feel a heist coming on.
I'm not trying to sell you the idea, but so that is, yeah. So at least 3 companies have been hit this year. There were, I think, 3 last year as well. Was it Atypia, Hub Games, I believe, last year, and someone else?
Yes, I remember Hub Games being hit, and I remember the year before that, Ludi Creations got hit.
They did, because they created the Steal This Game Kickstarter campaign to kind of recoup some of the funds, which I backed, and is quite a tidy little game on a postcard.
Okay. Well, Ludi do know what they're doing, and I am looking forward to On the Underground, actually.
Can't wait.
So I've got a little bit controversial opinion of this, unfortunately. And this year, I mean, the first year you saw the Ludi Creation funds, you went, oh my God, how bad, how could that happen? And last year you saw these thefts announced on Twitter and you go, oh my God, I feel so sorry for these people. And then this year I was kind of like, well, why haven't you done anything about it? Well, not quite like that, Andy, but there was a kind of a thought in my head is like, this is 3 years in a row now that there's been thefts at Essen.
Be on your guard.
Why aren't people more on their guard?
Could you not have put some precautions in to prevent it? Or are the thieves that sneaky?
Maybe it's an inside job.
Ooh.
Well, you say inside job. What I had heard is these people are not targeting Spiel because it's Spiel. They target basically the Essen Centre, the Essen...
The Meze.
Meze?
Yeah.
Yeah. So they know their way around the place and know exactly what they're after. And they know that these big conventions, a lot of cash changes hands, and because of the way, as we said, the German system works, apparently it is all cash. So they know exactly what they're doing, apparently.
I wonder if that's why we see less of that at things like the UK Games Expo, because they do have card machines.
It'd be interesting to know why, because no one has ever come forward publicly and said that they'd had a theft at UK Games Expo.
True.
Now, there is a little bit of a weird, subtle difference between Expo and Essen in the way the stalls are laid out.
I was because in the Expo, it's very much like there's a counter. It's usually almost boxed off to go, this is where you go to buy something, and no money goes beyond that point.
Yeah.
And that's what I assume is the case at Essen, but is that not the way it is?
Because of the layout of the rooms, I always felt it was, especially some of the stands, were a bit more open. And as you said, most of the stands in Expo, which are selling things, even publishers that are selling things, they have that almost little booth kind of thing where, all the cash is behind that area. So I don't know. Without knowing the exact details of what happened, I can't comment, but...
That's his story and he's sticking to it.
Yeah.
Still unfortunate. I mean, $3,000 is a lot of money to lose.
It really
is.
is. Yeah.
It is.
That's a lot of board game sales.
It is.
Gives you an idea of how many sales happen at Essen.
We think Emperor S4, they do, so Hanamagoji is the one game that I know of theirs, and that's not an expensive game. So for them, if you're thinking that's a €15 game, if they're all around that mark, that's a lot of games they've shifted to lose $3,000 and to then try and recoup those losses. Because it's not going to be cheap to get a place, floor space at Essen either.
No, indeed. I wonder if there's some kind of insurance they should be able to take out. I don't know.
Maybe
recoup it. I don't know.
We'd hope so.
Oh, you'd think so, yeah.
Or just a way of securing the cash box to the desk, so you have to physically steal the entire desk with all the remaining board games on.
Just Gorilla Glue it to the desk.
Sure, why not? I was thinking a bolt, but that would work.
You could do that, but you'd have to buy the table. I'm just thinking, because obviously I'd imagine most of the tables would be leased from the meze, so you'd have to turn up with your own table, which you're going to bolt something to.
What you should do is bring a game table topper with you.
Right.
And then you could get some shy marketing from whoever the game topper is, and you'd have to drill a hole in it, obviously, but
it's not a bad idea. Other people have suggested aprons.
Oh, with the pockets in the front, like they do at cinemas and things. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, so you have those, and then when you've got a lump of cash in there, you just go deposit that in a safe in a secure location.
How are you going to affix the cash box to an apron? That seems less secure.
I don't know, John, but if anyone can solve that problem,
use a bolt, John.
I'll give it
big bolt.
I'll give it some thought.
Don't use a nail gun.
Ooh. Or at least don't wear it whilst you're fixing it.
I think 50% of our audience have just winced.
Steve's still wincing.
Yeah.
Moving on.
Maybe don't come to the PHC for security advice.
Or indeed any advice.
Well, board game advice is pretty good.
Again,
So, John, you mentioned Diablo 4. That was because BlizzCon was this week.
That's right.
And
indeed.
one of the other things that dropped from this is a new World of Warcraft board game coming.
Ooh.
But rather than it being a completely new game, it's going to be a reskin of Smallworld.
Ooh.
Quality game, Smallworld.
I have a strong prediction that the Tudor household will be purchasing this game.
I think you are indeed completely correct, because as we're recording this podcast now, my wife is playing World of Warcraft downstairs.
Good.
I mean, I've racked up a few hours playing Factorio, but World of Warcraft is it's not even in a different league, it's like a different dimension in terms of the amount of time it's sucked up from people.
I don't understand how people can... I mean, I've never been a big fan of World of Warcraft. I've tried it, played it for about a month and just got bored, because I just got fed up of going into a forest and killing badgers.
Understandably.
I mean, I've played it myself, and I don't quite get the appeal of the bog standard game, but what Amanda does is the raids, and I can really see the appeal of them.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a massive boss fight, which is multi-layered and sequenced boss fight, which you've got to do with 16 other people. And each one's got like a particular skill, and you've got to do your homework for it. You've got to research the boss and find out what its tells, how its triggers, and where you need to be at the right time, and things like that. What's more, they get scored, they get ranked. So they'll raid, right? Like Samantha will raid, and then tomorrow morning she'll be on this website that's looking how good, because she plays a healer, how good a healing is compared to all the other healers like on that server.
Bloody hell.
And there's little scores about how much healing, a little graph that shows you what your healing was over time. It's another world, I tell you.
Literally.
Indeed.
But yeah, so they're doing a Smallworld reskin of that. So they've it's all work in progress at the moment. They've just released some artwork, preliminary artwork for it, but it looks just like Smallworld, but with Warcraft artwork.
Okay, cool.
I'm hoping that what they're going to do is actually tweak it so it's not the same races with a different skin.
You'd hope so, yeah.
Because that would be really cool then, because then it would be something completely unique. But if I go admit, because I've already got Smallworld, if it is just Smallworld with different artwork, maybe not.
Yeah.
You're still going to buy it, Steve. It's not up to you.
He has a point.
No, you're right there.
Apparently it's due spring 2020.
Not long away.
I haven't played Smallworld. I need to play
I was just thinking, I don't think I've played it either.
Have you not?
I thought you had played it, John. I thought you played it about a long time ago, like 5 or 6 years ago.
I'm looking at the artwork and it does sort of look familiar.
I can I'll give my thumbs up to the app as well, Smallworld.
Okay.
Or Smallworld 2. It's actually pretty bloody decent. And the last story we're going to talk about in the news is announced at Essen Spiel 2019, but nobody seems to have noticed it, was Catan World Explorers.
New board game?
No, it's not a new board game. This is the people behind games like Pokemon Go and Harry Potter's Wizards Unite, the app game where you have to wander around in, what's it called? AR? What does AR stand for?
The real world?
I think it's the real world, yeah.
Real world. Where you walk around pointing your phone at stuff. That is now coming to Catan.
Looking like a prize wanker.
Yes, yeah, meeting up. I actually saw, I was in the park the other week with the kids, and there was a group of like 20 odd people just congregated underneath the clock tower. And I was like, what are they all doing? Because like, you just expect in a park you'd have kids with you. But these all these adults just congregated, and all of a sudden they just got all their phones out and all started walking off together.
Do you remember, John, when me and you were in Birmingham, we went to the Brewdog pub in the middle of Birmingham. It's a nice sunny day, so we're sitting outside, and this huge tour of Pokemon players comes past. Whole group of about 20 of them, like shuffling along and their phone in front of me. Me and John were like, I hope that's Pokemon. I really hope that's Pokemon.
Yeah, there was a Pokemon gym. I think that's what they're called. You can see I've played this a lot. Just at the end of the road where I used to live in Malvern. So every time I sort of walked into town, there's this congregation of teenagers loitering by the end of the road. I'm like, what's? I mean, at least they're not doing drugs, but I'm not sure if it's better or worse.
One could argue that Pokemon is a drug.
Yes, yeah, it's probably more addictive.
You've got to get all the hits, something like that.
But we can expect that to the board game community now with Catan World Explorers. So the idea of this is much like in actual Catan, you are trying to trade resources that are ripe in your area, but those resources that you require to build up your settlement, you have to trade with other people across the world or with the interesting and funny characters that they've built into it. Also, you have to build roads to your other friends or people that you meet via Catan World Explorers, so you can set up trade routes with them. So it's, as I understand it, it's not necessarily about your settlements. You're building more like a county or a state, and you have more power.
Is it going to be like the normal game where nobody ever trades for less than 4 because everyone's a dick?
I'm going to assume so, yes.
Yeah. So that kind of undermines the entire game. You might as well just go straight to the bank. Problem solved. Next.
Is that a universal thing, or is that just the way we play it?
No, it's universal. Actually, no, It's not. No, Alora's friends are all really nice and just swap like 1 for 1. I said, what the fuck are you doing? No, this is not how you play the game at all.
You can't play it like that against me. I'm going to murder you.
Exactly, and I do. But
I always like the tactic in Catan of trading 4, as in giving you 4 for the one thing I want quite happily, so that I know that you're over the hand limit for when the robber comes.
yes, that's clever.
So I go, well, I'm not going to give you one thing. I'm going to give you these 4 sheep that I know you don't need, but it puts you over the hand limit.
That sounds like standard PHC play.
Yep, pretty much.
Yeah. Do you know earlier, Rory, when you said no one else seems to have reported on this new video game?
Yeah.
I think I know why.
Why is that, Steve?
Because no one gives a shit.
I wanted to say that, Steve, but I thought, no, I'm going to hold my tongue.
And still, as I said it, I thought Andy's going to say this before me.
He was really what he wanted to say it about 5 minutes ago. He said, no, because no one gives a about Catan because it's shit.
There are worse games out there.
There are. It's called Talisman.
Trip lock.
I was going to say Trip Lock, oddly. Yeah.
And that brings us into the end of the news. And just for your information, guys, I'm still recording on a microphone, open brackets, Yeti Nano, close brackets.
Wow.
That's good to hear.
Yay.
Halfway through a podcast and he's not up yet.
You are making me more and more paranoid that I haven't. I can definitely see that it says the right microphone on mine, and I did a test before this, but it's just something about one person doing it wrong twice, Rory,
Thanks, Sean.
that makes you paranoid.
Three, sir.
Is it 3? Not do it 3 times.
No.
3 is the counting, and the counting of the numbers shall be 3. Yeah, I'm worried now because mine doesn't tell me what mic I'm using in my recording software. So I'm just
So
going,
you're worried. Your worry is magnifying Steve's worry. You can see it in his face of just
he's
a please,
sweating
guys.
now. Look at him.
Please have recorded the podcast.
It's fine.
Yeah.
Right.
As long as he's actually pressed the record button, then we're all right.
Yeah, I've just checked that as well. I am
It's
recording.
flashing red. Yeah, we're all good. We're all good. My biggest worry is that I've got a mute button on my microphone and there's an LED above it to indicate whether it's sort of muted or not. The problem is when it's normal, it's green, it's fine, it's recording, and if I press the mute button, it goes orange. The problem is I'm colourblind and can't really tell the difference.
Oh, that's classic. Right, we should talk about some board games.
We probably should.
We should indeed. So the first board game we're going to talk about is one that 3 of us have actually played and should be on Kickstarter right now.
Do I count as half a point in that one?
Oh, actually, no, we've all played it.
I've played
I've played a demo of it, but yeah.
That's close
Yeah.
enough. So we actually mentioned this in a couple of episodes ago, which in our Essen podcast. In fact, the games we're going to be discussing in this episode are a little bit of a repeat of some of the things we might have said, but we've played things in more detail.
Yes, I was going to
now.
say, now we have the benefit of actually having played them rather than just wild guesswork.
Yes. So the first game we're going to talk about is Tungaru from Alley Cat Games. Now, this was previously known as...
Marquesas.
Cases.
Marquesas.
but has been renamed. I don't know why. But this is a game about Polynesian islanders, and you are grabbing nomads and bringing them into your tribe. And you're going to do this with a bit of good old-fashioned dice placement. And the really cool and visual striking thing about this is your dice can only be placed on places where your boat is. So your dice actually go into a little boat. A little boat goes on the board and can sail around the different islands and grab resources and trade resources and then spend these resources to grab these nomads.
Simple.
The kind of interesting thing about it, the interesting aspect, is the victory points for the games are entirely determined by which nomads you pick up. So some might give you victory points for how many totems you've placed down. Some might give you victory points for collecting parts of flowers. Some might give you victory points for which resources you've collected by the end of the game. And what they do is they multiply and combine. And so, like, for instance, you could just grab one kind of nomad, which gives you 1 victory points for one thing and concentrate it. Or generally what's going to happen is you're going to get a little plethora, a little array of different nomads to give you an array of different victory points. And other than that, it's actually really quite straightforward. There's a couple of little subtleties. Like, for instance, the game as a whole works by it's 1 dice, 1 action. Straightforward. But what you can do is you can put little settlers onto islands. By putting the settlers on, it gives you an extra action opportunity. So where that settler is, you can do an action on that place. You've also got roll cards. And the roll cards do quite a few things, actually. They give you like a special ability that activates straight away. They give you a special ability which you can use throughout the turn, and they give you 2 more options for gathering resources. And what's really quite interesting about the settlers, the leaders, is once you've played that card, you pass it on to the next player. So that's one little mechanism which stops you just playing the same leader
I remember
roll
that.
card over and over again.
I quite like that.
I thought that was really neat, unless everyone's doing the same thing
Yes. Is it three of the four of us played the same one? Like, oh.
Oddly, Andy, you and I did that on our demo as well, didn't we?
We did, yeah.
The
you
three
and I
of us
pretty much
all played
exactly,
the same role for
Chief,
the two turns.
Chief. Beggar. Bloody hell. Yes.
There's also a couple of ways in which you can get extra victory points during the game. There's a couple of, because all these nomads which you can grab, although they get the victory point conditions, they've also got some kind of bonus. So everyone gives you something. Now, some of them will give you like an instant bonus, like an instant resource or an instant ability to move your boat. Other ones will give you special abilities, so give you extra action options, which you can play. And basically, you have to choose which of these nomads are going to go face up on your board, which means you can activate them, and then which ones you don't want to use can go face down. So there comes a point where you've got to decide, well, which ones do I actually leave the options out? But because there's a mix of kind of instant bonuses and non-instant bonuses, it kind of, I generally found it leveled out that you ended up keeping in front of you the stuff that did interesting things.
Yeah, some of them gave you extra slots so that you could store more resources as well. It's quite handy.
And then basically that all puddles on until a certain amount of nomads have been removed from the board, and you count up all your little combo of victory points, and series won.
Except we didn't get that far.
No,
we called it on the last game we played, didn't we? Because I wouldn't say Andy broke the game. I would say
Andy and John broke the game.
Dropped it.
Yeah.
Did you zoocracy this game, did you guys?
A bit.
Right. To put it into a caveat, I did get one rule wrong. Although I don't think it would have affected the game much, or wouldn't have affected how we were playing it.
No.
So one of the things you do is you've got on your little player board, you've got, we played the prototype version, which is discs. And I think the retail version is going to be little discs, but the Kickstarter version is going to have little totem poles.
Cool.
And as you take nomads off the board, you can put your totem poles onto the islands, and each one, as it's removed, reveals like another ability on your board. Gives you more slots to place nomads, gives you more slots to put items, that kind of thing. But what I got wrong was you can, especially in the 4-player game, you can only put one totem on each island. And I thought that stopped you from grabbing the nomad off the island once you'd already done putting the nomad the totem down, but it ends up it doesn't. It just means that you can't put another totem down. You can still keep grabbing a nomad off the island.
But
it's a minor thing, and we thought we couldn't do that, which we thought we had broken the game. But I still think we've broken it.
How did you break it then? What happened?
Well, we got to the point where we essentially had a runaway process. John and I had a couple of nomads that gave you an instant number of points by basically placing a die and spending a resource. Now,
yeah, you sacrifice one of your resources and you suddenly get, bang, I think I got 9 and you got 10 victory points or something like that.
Yeah, you had one that gave you 9.
Just on the drop of the hat there?
Yeah, exactly. John had one that gave him 9. I had one that gave me 10, and I had another one that gave me 7. So every round, and I had, so basically the 10 I had to basically place a die with 4, 5, or 6, and the other one was a 1, 2, or 3. So statistically, every single round, I was going to be able to do one of the two.
All you have to do, you lose one dice. You allocate one dice to one of these guys and any one resource.
Yeah.
And you're bagging...
No,
specific
not anyone.
one.
A specific resource.
A specific resource. So if you had an engine built... I assume you had an engine built there, Andy, where you would draw in this resource in every round to spend the
I'd also managed to set up the fact that I could turn one of the resources into the other one if I needed to. So my boat was pootling around this little island if it needed to. So I can do this transfer. So I always had the 2 resources. So every single round I was getting 17 points. So essentially it got to the point where the only person that was challenging me was John, because he had a similar tile, and he had a bunch of victory conditions at the end of his game that gave him a big bonus. So we essentially got to the point where it was in my interests to not end the game, because I always had this massive advantage. So every single round I had something like a 6 or 7 point advantage over John. John kind of needed it to go on a little bit further, but then end it so that he just knows it in front of me. Yeah. And we then worked out the points scored by Steve and Alora, who played it. They couldn't even get enough points to catch us by the time we decided to call it. So there was just absolutely no way they could win. So we thought it's a bit too powerful.
I think the problem was that to finish the game, you had to have, was it 4 of the spaces where the cards get dealt out to had to be empty?
You basically had to run out the pile of nomads. That's the only end game condition.
So was the problem here, Steve, that there wasn't a catch-up mechanic for you to leap so many points ahead, for you and Alora to leap so many points ahead? Or do you think the problem was that Andy and John were able to build these engines and you weren't able to replicate it?
Both.
Right.
What I think the problem was in order to end the game, you have to get nomads, because nomads are the main way in which the game is, the main kind of core way in which you're supposed to be getting victory
Of course,
points.
it's a game about colonisation, so that makes sense.
Yeah, so you're supposed to get these, and they're the whole thing which ends the game. So we just got to a point where we worked out that if we managed to get based on the resources rate we were getting them and the nomads, it was going to take us another 4 turns for the game to end. And that was including if John was buying nomads. But by that point, because Andy got his little engine running, which it's not an engine building game, by the way, he just found an engine inside the middle of this.
Right.
He would have, in that point, have got 17 points 3 turns in a row. And at that point, I think we double checked how many points I had, and I was on 32. So in 2 turns, which is what it's going to take, Andy was
Andy got 68.
Streaming ahead. Yeah. So it was just that point when we thought, well, there's no point carrying on now because it's inevitable.
I do wonder though, if we'd realised earlier on that if we'd realised earlier on in the game that you could take more nomads without having to move, whether we'd have burnt through the deck of nomads faster. Because there was certainly a couple of times where I thought, I wouldn't mind that one, but I can't because I've already bought one from this one. But the resource that I'm linked to on the opposite island, I can still access without moving. It's more cost effective for me to use that resource now and then move next turn and then go and grab another nomad. So I'm sure it did affect it. The real question that we don't know is whether it would have affected it enough that it would have changed the outcome. Would we actually have got to that empty deck point before mine or Andy's engine had reached enough that we then couldn't be caught?
I agree with you there, John. And this is kind of the problem we're always going to have especially with Kickstarter games. Because Kickstarter, we've got a time limit. This podcast should be coming out on the Sunday, which is the 10th. I think this is going on Kickstarter on the 5th.
Correct.
So it's already been on Kickstarter for 3 or 4, 4 or 5 days by now. And this isn't the only game of this I've played. I've played a few games with 2-player as well. So we've not had the opportunity. And I'll put my hand up and say I got the rule wrong, but I also will say that's the second rule book for that game I had in 3 weeks. So I was getting confused as to the rules slightly. And it's like an occupational hazard, really. Mm-hmm. It's very easy to make that mistake, especially when the rule book is still being written. Because I've noticed there's now a 3rd rule book has turned up.
Oh, God.
Right.
Because they've released the Kickstarter rule book, which is the final version with all the swanky graphics and that.
But that's the nature of Kickstarter games.
That's the nature of Kickstarter games, and you have to put this huge, massive dollop assault on top of it and say, well, the game could be different by the time it gets to you as a Kickstarter backer. Mm-hmm. So these little niggles. However, we've played this. I've played this a couple of times now. I played it with you guys. I played it with Adam. I'm still of the same opinion. The game's just not interesting.
I have to agree.
Because you mentioned this last time we talked about it, that although the game has restrictions on your choices, those choices aren't ever restrictive enough to actually cause any kind of difficulty.
It doesn't cause any difficulty. Even the movement. I mean, there's a thing that it really struck me actually last time I played. You can move 3 spaces for free, and if you want to move a 4th space, you have to spend a fish. Did anyone spend a fish in that game?
No. I don't think I ever. I think I only ever moved 3 spaces once. I don't think there was any need to. Yeah, I agree with Steve. I think there was too much freedom. I think because there's all 4 spots on an island for a 4-player game, they need to get rid of one of them. It needs to be more competitive to make people race towards the tiles to get their totem down on a particular island. And I think they need to restrict the amount of movement. Maybe just block off a couple of the routes with coral reef or something so a boat can't go over it. Just to say actually, I've got to go round here. So if somebody parks up somewhere, they've got to get out of the way before someone can go through. Or, you can only move through a boat. You can't occupy the same space. Something like that. Just to make it a bit more, Yeah, the Venice effect. Yes, the game that you really love, Roy. But something like that. I mean, we've been accused by David Turksey saying, wow, you guys really are nasty. But I think it wasn't competitive enough
It's very nice.
It was too nice.
Which is both its strength and its weakness. It's very nice in that it doesn't make you feel restrained. It makes you feel that you can do everything you want to do every round. But that also means that it's missing that little spark, which makes it more interesting.
Exactly. Mr. Summers, you have a question.
I have a question on that. So, as you said, it's very nice. Do you think that this is a game that is aimed at people that are new to the hobby? Obviously, as veterans of the hobby, that you guys are wanting a little bit more spice from it. Would this make a good intro game?
I'll field that question to Mr. Cage.
Yeah, I mean, I enjoyed it to begin with, but I don't feel like I would want to race back to it.
Okay.
But maybe I'm no longer in that camp.
I don't know. I wouldn't really describe it as a gateway game, if that's really what you're asking, Rory. I think it's a bit too complicated for that. I mean, it's not a complicated game, but I think it's just a step too far as a gateway game.
There's quite a lot of options when if you're considering, like, you've got a hand of cards and you've got to pick which one of those you're going to play for this round. And then you've got to work out whether you need to move your boat, what resources you're going to pick up. There are lots of options, so there is some strategy available in it.
So its weighting it's a medium weight, but it's a light conflict. It's such a light conflict, or such a light. It's not even a conflict game, is it? Really, though.
I wouldn't describe it as a medium. I'd say light to medium.
Light to medium.
It's lighter than Viticulture, is how I would describe it. And that's not a massively heavy game. That's kind of 3 and a bit on the scale out of 5. I'd say this is probably about 2.5.
Okay.
Something like that. 2.5.
It is lighter than Viticulture, but I wouldn't say a lot. I think the difference is that the way Viticulture's executed, this feels slightly more clunky, in the sense that it's not like really obvious that you're going to go to this season and do this and that thing and do that. It's kind of, because you've got the cards in your hand and your little player board and the stuff on the main kind of board, you're looking at what tribes people are going to come out to grab hold of. You're looking at where your boat needs to be, what resources you can get from each island, whether your little minions that you can place down there can be used to grab stuff. And we kept on getting that wrong as well.
Okay.
Like throughout the game, we kept thinking that we could use them to acquire resources. You can't use them to acquire resources, Andy.
One thing they can't do, yeah.
Annoyingly, yeah. Hang on, you live there. Why can't you just mow the lawn or something? No.
Well, that was the other weird thing I thought about it. It was a dice placement game where for 5 of the 6 actions, the dice don't matter.
Yeah, that was fair, because it's literally just, you might as well just have a token. It's essentially just, it was reduced down to action selection. I think you're right, Steve. I think there needs to be a little bit more restriction on where the dice can go. They were slightly restricted on the sort of the gathering action, like you needed a 4, 5, or 6 to get a coral or something like that. But in order to do pretty much any of the actions on your player board, you just needed a die, which was a bit naff.
Okay.
I just think, again, it just comes into this, it's too nice. It needs to be tightened a bit. Just a little bit.
Tightened and slightly streamlined, I think.
Yeah, because I mean, there was also the action where once you'd rolled your dice, you had to put it on your boat. Why? It's just annoying. Because that means I have to reach across the board and put all my dice on the board, risking the fact that I'm going to throw all my dice everywhere, or just there's no need for it to be there. Just sit them in front of me. My boat's there. We know where it is.
The weird thing is, the first version of the rules didn't mention the boat. And in fact, the first version of the rules showed just the boat marking your dice in front of you. And it's supposed to be something to help you to work out which islands your dice can go to, because the dice has to go along the little pier. And there's a little visual thing. I mean, it looks beautiful. And if you see some of the little renders of what the final version is going to look like, it's going to, the Kickstarter deluxe version is actually going to have little boats which the dice sit in, which looks nice. But you're right, it made no difference to the gameplay.
No. I mean, the boat's there. That's the bit that signifies what you can go on to me. So it just seemed a bit faffy. But yeah, I've walked away from that thinking, it was all right. It was, I'm going to use the word deliberately again, functional. It worked. It wasn't particularly complicated, despite, the slight rule we got wrong. But you're right. It wasn't exciting. It wasn't interesting. It didn't, set my pants on fire, as it were.
I also kind of think, for me personally, like having seen what can come out of the deck, there's really kind of only 3 or maybe 4 different kinds of cards that come out, and you're just sort of trying to collect those. I don't feel like there's going to be an enormous variation game to game.
You mean of the nomads?
Yeah.
Yeah, the nomads. Yeah, nomads.
I would actually say that, yeah. Because the deck gets limited depending on the number of players you've got. And I was hoping that with 4 players, it was going to open up like loads more options. There's going to be loads more interesting things to collect, and it just you just got more of the same.
Yeah, because they fell into something like 3 categories. There was either direct victory points, there was the sets of resources, and then what was the other one?
Flowers.
There's a few actually. There's flowers, there's settlers you put down, which are extra workers, and there was totems you'd put down, and nomads. I think there's actually 5 different victory, maybe even 6 different victory conditions. Okay. So there's a little bit of playing around you can do with them. But you're right, John. It didn't feel different enough.
I didn't look at the end of it and think, that looks like a really interesting strategy, and I wish I'd gone for that one. Like going for the flowers was the only other. So I went for the engine building thing where you could exchange those resources. And I also went for collecting certain numbers of resources. And if you use those, you get like 5 points for this type, 4 points for a pearl and 5 points for a coconut, whatever it was. The only other ones that kind of looked like you'd score a good chunk of points was the ones with the flowers. Most of the other stuff was kind of helping you play the game along the way. So you could nudge your dice one with the other. And I got that early on and used it once in the entire game.
Yeah. Again, that comes back to the fact that the dice placement areas were just so free that you didn't need to nudge your dice. So
it was fun. Enjoyed playing it.
I said I enjoyed the game as we were playing it, but that's several times now where I finished it and gone, well, I don't actually have any real inclination to come back to it, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I wasn't buzzing from it afterwards.
Again, I do wonder something we're going to mention in a little bit. Is it just because we're now spoilt for choice?
Quite possibly.
Is it just that I know there are better games out there, so I'd rather play them? I don't know.
Possibly.
And as I mentioned on the Essen podcast, am I looking at this wrong way? Is it a nice game, which means I can play a Euro with anyone? Or are there, again, other games that fill that slot?
I think
say anyone.
Well, it's not a difficult game to play. That's the thing. I mean, with a little bit of coaching, even relatively new gamers would be able to play it because it's not particularly heavy and it's not particularly complicated. It's literally just.
I think the problems we had, John, was me working with a draft rule book. I think that has to be taken into consideration. Once you've got a proper rule book and know the rules,
that's true.
Rather than trying to work out what's different between 2 versions of the rules.
I was just thinking of our compass as to whether a game is a game for anyone, as in. Could you teach this to Ben in the space of 10 minutes?
Oh, no.
Right, okay, no.
Our buddy Ben asks a lot of questions.
If that's your barometer, then no, this is not a game for everyone.
Because you did say everyone, not most people, but everyone.
Yes, true. We're going to use that test now.
Did you misspeak there, Mr. Jewell?
I must have done, yes. The barometer, the Ben barometer.
Ben barometer, love it.
The Benrometer.
If you're going to play light, medium Euros, there are definitely better options. I mean, we've mentioned Viticulture. There's Lords of Waterdeep. There's Baby's First Euro. It's you draw the lines. Some people don't like it. Mark Cook being one of them apparently hates it. But I think there's a slight amount of charm to Lords of Waterdeep. It's quite simple, but it's a nice intro. And I think I would rather play Lords of Waterdeep, actually, weirdly. Possibly because it's D&D, but there are others, so it's, I don't know, I just don't think it does enough now.
Yeah.
It's not bad, it's just, it isn't going to get my money this time, which is a shame, because the last 2 Alley Cat games I've got are, Dice Hospital and Chocolate Factory, really, really good.
Well, maybe it's a good one for folk who like a lighter game, and we're just cruel and cynical people.
Yes.
Well, we are.
That's true, we are.
Yeah, we are.
There's no question.
Absolutely.
So that was Tungaru from Alley Cat Games. It should be on Kickstarter right now.
I do have one last bit to add, actually. Can we just check? Is Rory's mic still recording?
I'm still recording. I am still recording on a microphone, open brackets, Yeti Nano, close brackets.
So the next game we played was Chakra from... Let me get this right. Blam Studios, or Blam ! This is another nice little game, and this is all very pretty with little fairies on your little board. And this is a game which is about realigning your chakras. And you'll do this by grabbing coloured little gems and then manipulating them on a board with actions that allow you to say move one gem 3 slots down, move 3 gems 1 slot down each, or move one up, move one down. And really, that's it.
Sounds
it's
simple.
such a simple little game about getting the most efficient way in getting these gemstones to where they need to be. And there's also a nice little hidden scoring aspect where the game ends when you've got 3 gems in 5 of these chakras. And for each chakra you've completed, you'll score the points which are hidden. So during the game, you can take one of the actions allows you to have a little look to see what the points are for the different colours. So you want to ideally get the ones filled which have got the most points, while keeping an eye on what everyone else has looked at and what they're doing, and making sure that if they're avoiding a particular colour, which they've looked at, well, maybe you don't want that because it's low points. Or if they're going for a particular colour they've looked at, try and go that yourself. It's a nice little game. It's nice and easy to teach. However, it makes Andy swear like a sailor.
Is that because it's nice?
Not just because it's nice. It's because it is lousy for colour blindness. It's because there are so many colours in it. There's very little variation between some of them. So yellow looks like green, and purple looks like blue, and orange looks like red. So I'm like, well, where the do these things go? I spent about a quarter of my game trying to move purple, and I left them in the blue spot and said, I've done it now. And everyone looked at it and went, no, you haven't. I said, yes, I have. So I just, no, at that point I gave it.
He looked so pleased with himself as well.
So
Are they all the same shape?
Yes, they're all the same shape. They're just different colours.
Yeah. They're a simple plastic gemstone. You'll see them in lots of other board games. And you can generally buy them, like I think Board Game Extras and places like that sell them because they make nice little tokens for card games and things like that.
I was just thinking that might be a way to distinguish between different gemstones. If they were different shapes, at least then if you're colourblind, you've got a chance.
Yes, but no. So I was upset by that. I also didn't like the random aspect of the points distribution. I understand why they do it, and I think as an idea, it's not a bad idea. But you end up with a situation I was in, which is another reason I started swearing, is that I spent 3 actions to look at 3 different tokens, and they were all one. So I'm like, really? Right, so I'm not going for those 3, but I've just spent 3 actions looking at those, so everyone else has moved stuff around, so I'm 3 actions down. Whereas, the first action someone takes could go, oh, I've got a 4. Right, I'll go for that. Great.
Did anyone else look at them?
Oh, everyone did.
Okay.
Yeah. Because what you do is actually you've got 5 action tokens, and once you've spent them all, you have to spend an action to clear them. And when you do the clearing, you can look at what the different colour tokens are. You can also, there's like a special action you can do, which is basically when you grab the gemstones, normally they go to the top of your player board, and you can basically burn one of your little tokens, your action tokens, just put it in a particular spot to get stuff there quick.
Okay.
Now, that's something I didn't do, which I think I probably missed out on, but because I was so focused on this purple and blue thing, I just lost faith at that point. I like the idea of the game. I just think it needs to be changed slightly so that, dogs like me can see it.
I don't think there's much more we can say about that game.
No.
I mean, again, I played it with Adam a couple of weeks ago, and we both kind of agreed. It's a nice, simple game, and in fact, it almost feels like it should belong in John's collection. Because I think you could teach this to Ben.
Yeah, definitely.
Is it only a 2-player game?
4 or 5, I think it is.
Oh. Yeah, well, we played it as a 3, because Alora played as well. So
Yeah, no, it's 4. Sorry, it's a 4-player game, because we took out 1 set of tokens out. Yeah. And it's a race at that point. Again, you're not doing much to manipulate what other people are doing.
You're doing nothing.
You have no effect on what other players can do. It's just the order in which you take the gemstones off the main board and then looking at the tokens people have picked up.
Okay.
And that's it.
But yeah.
It's simple, functional.
It's a simple game, and it's quite a quick game as well, because I think you can probably play it in about half an hour.
I think we did, yeah.
You know what you're doing. About right. And again, it kind of doesn't do much to fully excite us, I think, is the
Agreed.
problem.
Yeah. Functional, but ultimately a little dull.
Wow, we are bored this week.
Yeah. Did you actually watch us play this one, John? I can't remember because I think you'd started
I saw
cooking chickens at this point.
I saw about
Driving
5
cars.
minutes of you guys playing, of Andy's frustrations about the blue versus purple and being very unhappy. In between finishing taking Ben for a drive and then starting to cook roast chicken. So yeah, I saw enough to see that it looked pretty, that you were shuffling gems up and down and getting frustrated that this thing's blocked by that thing. But that was about it.
That's pretty much summarised it quite well.
Yeah, all right.
Oh, there you go.
Done.
I should do reviews like this more often. Just drop in and watch you guys play for 5 minutes. Okay, got it.
So, the other game me and Andy have played recently is markedly different. Now, bizarrely, there's not much. This is very much a multiplayer solitaire kind of game. It's a game where you're dealing with your own problems right in front of you. And
Is there a reason why John didn't play this game?
Yes, John was trying to sell his car
okay.
and had a small heart attack when he thought he might not actually have been insured for the last 9 months. But it's okay. It's all good. Yeah. The insurance is okay. I got temporary insurance lined up so that I could sell the car, oddly enough, to Ben.
There was a whiff of poo in the room for a while. But
I'm like, this is taking a lot longer than I expected to just add someone to my insurance. And now I'm slightly terrified I may not even have any insurance. All I've got so far is some proof that I definitely cancelled it because I remember being quite disgusted with the prices LV were quoting me at the time. And they thought that they were insuring me for a minute, and they're like, "Oh no, hang on, this was actually cancelled a year ago." So would you like to take out some insurance with us? No, I need to go and bye.
dickhead.
Sorry.
So yes. So rather than deprive you guys from actually playing this fantastic game, Trismegistus, I thought I'd just back away and then watch from afar, also because it looked horrendously complicated and was probably going to melt my brain.
I assume that Steve and John had just banned you from playing this.
I didn't ban myself.
You mean Steve and Andy?
Oh, sorry. Oh. Yes, sorry, Steve and Andy.
But yes, you are right.
Yeah.
Yes, you're right. So this is Trismegistus, which is a game about brewing potions and publishing your results. In fact, it's thematically and slightly mechanically, it's similar to kind of Potion Explosion and Alchemists. In that what you're doing is you are collecting resources in order to make potions, and you're going to publish these potions and get victory points for them.
Sounds simple, Steve.
Yeah.
And that's Trismegistus from Board and Dice.
So where this game gets... I mean, I don't want to explain every single mechanic in this game, because if I do, we will be here all bloody night. But the basic way in which you do this is you have to transmogrify elements. So you've got this little path on your board going from like base material all the way to gold.
Like a series of little flasks on the board.
Kind of like Pipeline.
Yeah. And yeah, like Pipeline. Yeah. And what you're doing is you are going to have to, via the mechanics of the game, move items along these into the right vials you need, because each potion has different requirements. It's got a different recipe in which to brew it.
Makes sense, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The main way in which you're going to do all your actions are based on these dice. So all these dice get rolled at the beginning of the game, and they get put in the middle of the board, and they've got 6 different symbols on them. One of which is a wild card, so when you pick that dice, you can choose it to whatever face you want. But the size of the pool of the dice dictates how many actions you'll be able to get out of that dice. So if there's 4 dice in the pool, when you take that dice, it goes onto your number 4 slot, which means you can use that dice 4 times.
Okay.
Yep.
The colour of the dice will determine which paths you can go down on your little alchemy kit, your little GCSE chemistry kit.
Yeah.
The face of the die will determine what tokens you can grab and what materials you can grab.
Which dictate which track you can go on the mastery track. I was going to say temple because it's Daniel Taschini, so it's basically a temple.
Yes.
Same person who designed Tolkien and Twati Hadouken. So there's the familiar track that you can sort of slide up, which is what these tokens are for.
It did confuse me watching you guys play this when you kept on banging on about temples. I'm like, I thought this was all about alchemy. What the f*** are you on about?
That is because Andy has previous with this game designer.
The problem with the game is, why it makes it so tricky is because that dice limits what actions you can do, and this is the complete opposite to Tangura. Now, this is because the dice limits what actions you can do. You have to really think carefully about what actions you're going to take with it, because you might need to get a particular dice face in order to get certain ingredients and to get certain these tokens which are used to transfer ingredients. But then you need a different colour dice in order to do your transmogrification to get things in the right place.
I'm already lost.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the paths between those little flasks on your board, they're different colours. Right, so I think it's white to begin with, then a black one, and then red around the other side.
Right.
And you've sort of got 2 flasks as well. So when you acquire resources, they go in the unrefined bit. Then when you refine them, they go into the next flask, which is refined, which allows you to do some other stuff that I drifted out of, if I'm honest.
But there's more layers to this as well. So at the end of the game, you've got these like papers, which are like end of game scoring things. If you've met certain requirements, you can get loads of victory points for these. And you've also got artifacts which slot into your board. And if one of your little transmogrification actions goes over an artifact, you can fire it off to get a bonus. There's also these little tokens on the top of the board, which if you've done certain amounts of potions of a certain colour, they move onto the main board, which they give you a bonus action. And if you get 2 of them in a particular column or row, you can fire off the bonus actions of those columns and rows. So
that's number 1. I felt like yelling about 3 or 4 times every turn.
So it's a game which is all about getting those combos. It's all about getting the action which can fire off the combo, which will allow you to do more things. So, like, if someone's playing it crap, like I was, here we go, I'm going to grab one resource. Games to Andy. Andy can see through the bloody matrix on this game. I don't know how he did it. And goes, right, I'm going to do this, which allows me to do this, which allows me to do this, which allows me to do this. I'm going to spend this to do this and do this.
It's quite telling because Andy and Alora spent most of the game accusing him of cheating.
Even Alora.
Yes. Oh dear, I've got Rory.
Yes, I got accused of cheating about 3 times. I'm like, no, I'm not cheating. I'm just better.
It was suspicious the way you kept on half doing an action then cancelling it, and I'm pretty sure things went back where they came from.
I did retract it. I always did. But as I say, I've played Tolkien and Twatty Hadouken quite a lot, so
you're wired for this type of thing.
Well, slight. I mean, the thing is, I'm really shit at Tolkien. So as much as I like the game, I'm really bad at it. But the fact that it's the same designer, I kind of got it into my head. It's like, right, you must go up the temples. That's basically the way you do really well in both of his games. Just go up the temple tracks. So I kind of focus my game on just getting these little tokens that every time you do a transmogrification, you go up one step you spend one of these little tokens at advantage you on whichever track it is. And when you're making a potion, there's a requirement for not just the resources, but a certain level on one of each of these tracks, or possibly 2, depending on the card. So I thought, right, and you get dealt at the start a super duper mega potion that is supposed to be really, really difficult to make. And I made it about halfway through the game. But because, but the thing is, I had to spend ages and ages going up this track, almost pretty much to the top, because that's what makes it really hard to do. Getting the resources is actually pretty straightforward, but
it doesn't sound straightforward, Andy.
It was. Getting up the track was more difficult, because in order to get up the track, you've got to do transmogrification, which means spending resources. So you don't want to spend the resources you've already got because you want to spend them on making the potion. So you just got to try and make sure that you've got enough in your pocket. But ultimately, I loved it.
And I can see why. Because
there is a but, though.
Although it was a very complicated game, and I know we mentioned this on the Essen podcast as well, it's a complicated game which is made worse by a badly laid out rulebook. I'm not going to say a badly written rulebook. I'm going to say a badly laid out rulebook.
Okay.
Because it separates out different sections of the rules into bits where you don't expect them. Rather than having, right, here's the actions you can take and explaining the actions in full, it goes, here's the actions you can take and explains 4 of them in full, but then gets to transmogrification and goes, we'll deal with that later. And you get to transfer.
It's one of these rule books that's written to minimise the number of times they repeat the rules, which means that they're scattered into about 50,000 categories.
Yeah. So basically what I did, and it's worked wonders, was actually download the PDF of the rule book, open up a Google Doc, and copy and paste the bits. So I haven't rewritten the rule book. I've just copied and pasted it into a flow which makes sense. And all of a sudden it all clicked. Yeah. It was like, oh, is that it? That's how it works.
Have you put that up on Board Game Geek yet?
Not yet, because it's not finished, but it is on Twitter.
I think on the face of it, it is kind of complicated, but underneath, once you get your head round it, it's not that terrible. I don't think it's that much more complicated than Tolkien, to be honest. It's just kind of reordering things. So instead of putting a token down and taking it off, you're just picking up a die and doing things with it. The bit that makes Trismegistus hard is thinking sort of 3 dice ahead.
Yeah, that's the major thing, yeah.
Yeah, because you don't have full control of what dice are going to be left in the pool, because the chances are someone else is going to pick up a die before you do, just because of the timing of the game. Unless you know.
That was quite neat, I thought. The way that if there's 5 dice in the pool, you take one off, you get 5 actions with that. The next person pulls a dice from the same pool. There's only 4 left, so now they get 4 actions. Next person does it 3, 2. So it becomes less and less attractive to get those dice. You want to be in there first if you can.
But at the same time, I was getting the opposite problem. I was actually screwing up because I was grabbing the 5 dice and then realised I didn't want that dice anymore. I'd done 2 of the actions. I got 2 of the potency out of it. And it's like, oh, that's the wrong colour now. So I've got 3 actions I need to burn to get to the position, to get, because I don't want to waste them. So I'm like, right, well, what do I do with this? Do I get tokens with it? Do I get resources with it?
Get resources. Get the
do I
resources.
just burn it? Do I do something that's going to burn it to get another dice? And that's what Andy says. You need to think like 2 or 3 dice ahead, because you need to think, right, I need to do this, then this, then this. And the amount of times I did this, and then couldn't do the last one.
Yeah. Having the potion cards is definitely very useful to drive you towards a target, because if you don't have that, you'll just kind of aimlessly just grab random resources that you can't really do anything with. So, I mean, having the powerful card, which is basically what I focused most of my game on, was like, right, just get this. And then if I get myself to that position, I'm going to be really high up on at least one of the tracks, and I'll have the resources I need to complete this, which is worth a lot of points. And now, during the process, you kind of need to make another potion because it unlocks a couple of other things, which I then made use of, which helped me do other things. So it's kind of a sort of almost 3-stage process. Make a simple potion to start with, build up some more resources, get yourself a couple of bonus tokens, and then unlock a couple of things, which will give you a couple of other things, which then will give you the target that you're trying to work towards, which is a super duper mega potion. And then, problem goes away.
That doesn't sound like a simple 3-stage process.
It was.
And I think that's one of the things the game did really well, actually, is when you start the game, you are given a starting potion, and you're given a super duper potion, as Andy calls it, which I think was called your masterwork potion. So you're given, and then in between, you can grab level 1, 2, or 3 potions. So you're effectively given a level 0 potion and a level 4 potion.
Just to get you started. Pointing in the right direction.
Yeah.
That's good.
It was actually really clever.
Here's something to kick you off, and here's a long-term goal.
Exactly.
So it gives
and
you
I think
a focus
that's what
for the whole game.
Exactly. I think it really does need that, because if you didn't have that, you'd be like, oh my God, where the hell do I go with this? Because then you'd be completely at the mercy of the 5 decks of potions that came out. Now, obviously, you get the choice, assuming people don't swipe them, of which one you pick up. But of course, if one comes out of the deck that you don't really fancy, and you've got the limited number of dice pool, you think, I don't really want that, because that completely knackers my plan. So having the long-term goal I think is really, really useful. But yeah, I know, it just seemed to click with me. I quite liked it. But it is very, very complicated.
I really like the sound of this game, and I'd really like to be taught how to play this. Probably by someone like Steve with a Google Doc of the rules over a really long afternoon. Maybe with a lunch break in the middle.
So I could teach you that. I've got it in my head now. It's all right.
And the small snooze.
Right, that's...
It's not. I think we only played. It took us an hour and a half, 2 hours to play.
You're having a laugh.
About 2 hours.
Seriously,
it was about 2 hours because we finished after eating our fish finger butties. So that's when we started, and we were finished about 4 o'clock because we were just finishing up when Ben turned up, and Ben turned up about 4. So it was about 2 hours, and that was including teaching.
And that's including the teach.
And
wow.
It's not too bad.
It's not actually too bad because there's not a lot of actions in the game. Because you basically you draft 3 dice each round, and there are each age or whatever you want to call it, and there are 3 ages. And in fact, one of the things I was finding when I played it with Adam found the game went too quick because he would end up if you use each dice and use it once at a time. I'm going to use this dice once, then twice, then 3-5 times. Yeah. The game can be a bit slow, and if you're playing it properly and thinking about it, sometimes you need to do that. But other times it's like, right, I just need loads of mercury. Whoop, 5 mercury. That's my dice used. So you depend on how you use your economy of actions, depends on how quick the game goes. I would say now I've played it with 2 players and I've played it with 3 players. And of course, it's one of those games where the number of players directly affects how long the game takes because you're waiting for other people to do things. And it also means that because it's got that kind of multiplayer solitaire aspect where the dice pools are really the only things which are affecting what other people are doing. Which means that I actually don't see the point of playing this as a 4-player game.
Okay.
There's the bonus tokens, which, again, they're not a major effect on other players, but there were a couple of times when you and Laura stole the bloody bonus tokens I wanted, but never mind.
But I suppose that's more of a case of Steve and Laura wanted those tokens for themselves. It wasn't to spite you.
Yeah, totally. That's all it was. It was just a market, and they got to it first. That's all it was.
Yeah, and I highly doubt that they could spot that Andy was after them either, because frankly, the amount of time that Steve and Alora just spent with their heads in their hands, just going like, what was I even trying to do? I thought about this before, and now it's gone. And how is Andy Are you cheating, Andy?
The one problem I think with this, and we did discuss this at the time, is as much as I love Trismegistus, and I would happily buy it, it's not out yet, is it?
Nope. Is it not? Okay.
It's been Essen. Yeah, it is out.
Yeah, it came out Essen.
It is out.
Forget me, ignore me. I don't know anything.
Is that because of its noodle baking complexity, it isn't a game we'd end up playing very often, which is a problem. Because I've got a few games that are noodle bakingly complicated, like Ave Roma and Prehistory and Aggro and stuff. And I very rarely get to play them because no one else wants to sit down and play them with me. It's not fair.
Yeah.
Laura will now and again if I can just about convince her to, but it's a tough sell. So it's kind of a game that I would really want to own, and I really should. I do definitely recommend it, but you won't get to play it very often because you need to find the right crowd.
Okay.
Well, it depends on your regular board gaming pals, I suppose.
Totally.
Yeah, I think I agree with Andy. It sounds like a very interesting game. I wouldn't want to own it because I know I would never play it with anybody that I semi-regularly game with. But I'd really like to give it a go. It sounds intriguing.
I agree wholeheartedly with everything Andy said, actually. I really like it. It's just so complicated that I'm only really going to play this with Andy.
Yes. Laura keeps convincing me, no, don't buy it.
You're so going to buy it.
I am so going to buy it.
Of course he is.
And I'm going to get into trouble for buying it, but we'll see.
It's inevitable.
It is, but we'll see. As I say, realistically, I will very rarely get to play it, unfortunately.
So that's Trismegistus from Board and Dice. Thrice majestic.
Yes.
I'm just going to keep interrupting Steve every time he's going to try and say something.
So...
Is your mic still on?
Yeah, I am still on. Hang on. I'm still on a microphone open bracket Yeti Nano close bracket. No, you go ahead, Steve.
No, carry on.
Sorry, were you trying to say something there, Steve?
This is like our D&D session. The DM basically spends 3/4 of the game silent as the rest of the party just f***s about.
Yeah, pretty much.
I think that's about all we've got time for today. I think we've covered everything in our little list. So thank you very much for listening, everyone. We have been Polyhedron Collider. If you enjoyed us, then please give us a review on iTunes or your podcast platform of choice. If you'd like to chat to us, we are available on Twitter. We're at PolyhedronC. I can also be found at Wahothelmadenga.
I can be found at Sonic H with a 0.
I can be found at John_K.
And I am Rory J. Summers.
We are also on Facebook, and we have a guild on Board Game Geek, which is number 2726.
We had a week off this week, but we will be back. Sorry, last week. Or
the week before.
We had some weeks off recently. It's going to get confusing because this airs on a certain date. And then, anyway, every Thursday, most Thursdays,
John should never do live telly.
we play D&D on twitch.tv/Polyhedron Collider. And I've even started uploading the backlog of YouTube videos of the same content so that you can watch it again on youtube.com/user/Polyhedron Collider.
I encourage our regular listeners to double check the order of the videos uploaded to Polyhedron Collider, because if you listened to last week's episode, you'll hear that John promised to upload the next episode before I uploaded this the next podcast.
And he didn't.
And if you look at the order, you'll see he failed miserably.
In my defence, it does take quite a long time to upload these videos.
In the argument for the prosecution, I was 4 days late in uploading that podcast.
But still.
Wow.
And if you want more board game news, Kickstarter highlights, or to read about some of the other games that we've been playing, you can read all those on polyhedroncollider.com.
Thanks for listening, folks. We'll be back in a couple of weeks. Until then, happy gaming.
Tatty bye.
Catch you later.
Bye-bye.
I'm still recording on a microphone, open brackets, Yeti Nano, close brackets, and I'm about to stop recording now.